Howdy! Welcome to the Imperial Board podcast. I am your host Darian, and today's topic is going to be on the tabletop community and how it has been affected economically over the past few years. A summary of the tabletop community for people who don't know it is that painting miniatures, playing board games, and other such activities. An example of those being Warhammer 40k, a larger property that's not too mainstream at the time being, but it's based off its grimdark setting and is a war game. Along with that, something that many of you may know is that of Dungeons & Dragons 5e, a game that has been integral to the process of becoming, the tabletop community becoming more popular, as it has been boosted up by the show Critical Role. Along with that, many other smaller channels, and just the overall well-done marketing that's been happening over the past couple years, bringing it right into the limelight. Finally off is Settlers of Catan, Tickets to Ride, and Kingdom Death Monster. These are board games that represent a wide variety of different subjects and styles, from dark fantasy to kingdom building to just general acquisition games and running a rail line of all your own, and also survival. The first two are seen as modern classics, while Kingdom Death Monster represents the powerful and successful nature of crowdfunding in the tabletop community. Now that that's all over with, we can talk into more of how it's been affected in the past couple years, especially the elasticity of the market. This is pretty standard all around. It's pretty inelastic industry. That's mostly because of how expensive things are in general. Most of the times when you're buying a tabletop board game, even the lower end ones are at minimum $40. Probably a bit more if you're getting one that's actually decent and or not Monopoly, Life, etc. This is also mostly done because of how much time and effort is put into it. There's a pretty standard system and way things are done at this point in the industry, making it hard for it to change too much. It is reliant upon paper, different factories, and translators to be able to translate the instructions and storylines of the books to different languages. Along with that, you got to keep in mind that there's all the stuff that has to be done in actually making the game itself. So all the different pieces, the cards, the board itself. And that does cost some shift, but it's normally pretty standard all around. Even with the virus being on hand, it hasn't affected many things besides one company in particular, the one that owned Warhammer, that being Games Workshop. And they're kind of greedy, to say the least. Most companies, even the ones who make miniatures for the tabletop community, which in themselves can be really expensive and rare, just simply because a whole bunch are done limited time. They're not constantly being produced. And while that's true for the wargaming and 40k in general, they are extraordinarily greedy. In the middle of the pandemic, they tended to boost up their prices, making it significantly more expensive to buy things. So over the years, while they've helped economically, they're also hindering the community, especially people who are into that. It's caused many people to start looking elsewhere for board gaming, and that's just unfortunate for them, but unfortunate for many of the people who are getting into it, especially the people who really don't want to shell out a couple $1,000. And the opportunity cost of purchasing games have also come up over the years. Not just because of the pandemic and all the time that you're able to actually have now, especially the opportunity cost, where most of the time you're like, I have to choose between either I work, or I gotta sleep, or I gotta go out. But now, you can just, if you're stuck at home, you're able to just play games, and that allows a lot of people to play more difficult games, more complex ones, because unfortunately, time is a very big resource in most of these games. They're like a video game with extra steps, leading to long setup times and long time to play, even for a rather short session. And this has kind of led to a lot of people not being able to play, mostly because it's just not effective for their time scale. But with the pandemic here, it's been, quite easy to find the time. Along with this, over the years, just in general, the gaming and tabletop community in general has been increasing and becoming more popular and more advantageous when it comes to actual capital. This has meant bigger games, more intricate games, and even better quality miniatures and paints. All this kind of leading up to the increased popularity as it's been getting larger and larger over the time. A big thing that's helped that is actually Kickstarter. If you don't know it, it's a crowdfunding website that allows people to put funds towards projects. It helps fund them directly, and boost projects into actual existence. Kingdom Death Monster, the one I mentioned earlier, one of the great successes, got $12 million. An incredibly large amount of money, and they're making a massive profit still, as even the base game without expansions is $400. So they're doing quite well with everything considered. But at the same time, this is part of the reason why the opportunity cost was either buy this now, the expensive thing, or you don't. And I put it towards things I need, which, yes, while in the pandemic, has led to issues. But because of the stimulus checks, for the people who didn't need it for other things, people have actually spent them on luxury goods instead of necessities. So it actually brought an uptick to many of these larger projects, including Kickstarter and all the other things involved with it, making it quite, well, awesome to say the least. It makes it so that many projects that would not be made normally or are rare or something you really want that's specific actually come to light, making it also awesome for the few people who want to buy that thing and increasing their own market value and getting some people off the ground into the actual community and into the business, which is always a good thing to see. Next up, pretty much, to keep in mind is just scarcity. And this comes with the cons of what's happened over the past couple years. While all before this, the scarcity of board games wasn't really a thing. Well, in most cases. There are some specific things I'll go over in a bit, but because of the pandemic, a lot of them start in Europe. A lot of these games are from Europe and other countries. They're not, while quite a few are from the US. A lot of them end up starting in Europe. A lot of them in France, and a lot of them in the UK. This has led to, from the shipping and the closing down of factories in multiple different countries, most prominently China, along with that, it led to, a shortage. A lot of the factories closed down permanently. They couldn't make the miniatures anymore. They couldn't make the board games, so the stock started going low. But at the same time, there wasn't as many people in the community, even as it was growing all the way up until the pandemic. So they had a decent stockpile in store and warehouses in most cases, leading to the majority of different games to actually still be playable and accessible for most people, which is quite awesome. But along with that, this is where the middle bit comes in, the difference. A lot of things in the hobby community are exclusive. They're not here for a long period of time, and it happens at frightening regularity, just because it drives up the price. From personal experience, there's a whole bunch of dragon miniatures. They're beautiful, well made, and they're some of the most pretty things you will ever see, except they're only selling 200 of them each. Meaning that if you don't get them now, they're gone forever, which hikes up the price. It also makes it easier for the different companies, as they don't have to worry about warehouse fees as much, because they're able to just keep the 200 even in local places, probably even at their office. And it makes it quite the impressive feat and show of status to actually show you have these miniatures. And while, once again, wonderful, it is a big issue, especially if it's something that you really wanted and you simply couldn't afford at the time. That's where something interesting actually comes in. While that scarcity generally comes up because of that, 3D modeling and 3D printing in general has actually been alleviating this, allowing a lot of the rare models, things that would only be made for a short period of time, or maybe 20 or so models ever released. Now you're able to actually get ones that are more permanent, things that you wouldn't think that would be sold. And that's what 3D printing is doing really well at. As people keep making miniatures online and games online, you can purchase them from online stores like My Mini Factory and other places such as that, and you're able to print them out yourself. You're able to print whole games, print miniatures and stuff that you'd have to buy normally for hundreds of dollars, just because of there's only a certain amount of them. At the same time, the issue of that comes in getting the 3D printers themselves. It makes it so it's very expensive, and it can be kind of costly and a new learning curve. All that together, though, it's a pretty awesome hobby, and there's a lot of cool things you can do here. From gaming, to painting, to showing stories, to dioramas. There's so much you can do within this tabletop community. And I hope I was able to give you a bit of information on the economics and how all that is coming down, especially with all this mess. Anyways, this is the Imperial Board Gaming and Darian. Safe travels to you all, and I'm heading out.